I'm Olivia.
I'm Laura, and this is Ruffly Speaking, a podcast driven by curious conversations about life with dogs.
Each episode, we explore one story or idea that helps us see our relationships with dogs a little differently.
It's not about perfect training or quick fixes, it's about the real, sometimes messy, always evolving nature of sharing life with dogs.
Yay! This is our first episode,
Woo!
and we're going to go through some introductory things just because it's our first. So I think it'd be nice to hear a little bit about me, Olivia, and you, Laura. So how about we start by introducing ourselves? Laura, do you want to tell everybody who you are professionally and personally, if you want to give us a little bit of tidbits of both? What do you do in the dog world? How are dogs a part of your everyday life? And give us the whole rundown.
And I feel kind of like the first day of school when it's like, my name is Laura. But okay, so yeah, as Olivia just mentioned, I am Laura. I don't know if I should start with the personal or professional, but let's start with the personal. I am a human who is obsessed with dogs, as you can imagine, because we created a podcast about dogs. Yeah, I started my career in marketing, and that was basically everything I knew. I was just kind of like following the path of, okay, I studied business and marketing, so I'm going to work there. And then one day I decided that that wasn't making me happy and that I really wanted to work with dogs, which I'm from Mexico, I guess that I should also mention that. So back in Mexico, when I was 18 and I had to choose a career, working with dogs wasn't much of an option other than being a vet. So for me, like that wasn't my passion. I didn't want to work with dogs who were sick or, like all of that, those parts of anatomy that are not really my thing. I wanted to work with healthy dogs who are happy. And so I decided to go through the business road, but that wasn't making me happy until I decided to jump back into that dream. And now here in Canada, there were new options for me, which, I remember the day that I decided, I just went in there and I looked and it was like, I can be a groomer and I can be a pet sitter and I can be, working in a doggy daycare. So I decided to work at a doggy daycare. And that's what allowed me to just learn a whole ton of things about dogs, about behavior. And pretty much immediately I decided that I wanted to be a trainer because I'm always been passionate about behavior and behavior psychology. I feel like that's the part of marketing that really attracted me. So then one day I was like, oh my God, I can do the same, but with dogs. I was like, that's so awesome. So that's what led me to study to become a dog trainer and then to also start my business, which is Curious Nudes, which is basically a focus on doing private walks for fearful, anxious, and reactive dogs. And I've had that business since 2023 as I continued to learn and to get my certification in dog training, which I just obtained. And now in the middle of that way, I met Olivia, which we'll tell you more about it. But that kind of like brought us together into our obsession with dogs, and we just keep talking, and we're so passionate about a lot of the same things that kind of like led us here. Well, I think like I also cover what I do in the dog world. I'm a trainer and a walker, and I'm trying to mix the two into something unique, I hope. And dogs are part of my life. They're my work. That's what I do for a living. I wake up and most of from Monday to Friday, I am working with dogs. And now that I am leaning more towards training, now on the weekends, I work with both the humans and the dogs. So I feel like that really is what gives me purpose and makes me so happy to help people just learn more about this little species that they decided to bring into their home and how they can build a life that it's more a middle ground instead of us humans saying, hey, I want this dog to behave and to adapt to my lifestyle. I feel it's a lot more fair to figure out how we can merge our lives and how we can give this team that we created just some meaning and some more calmness, understanding both species. So yeah, that's basically my part of things. So what about you, Olivia?
It's funny. We have such different backgrounds, thinking about our far past, but the way we come about things and came into this is kind of similar and where our passions lie, which is really interesting. But Yeah, I'm kind of like Laura in that I also had a marketing background. I mean, I studied English in university, which I didn't end up using, but I fell into marketing and I did marketing and branding for almost like 10 years. So I was doing that. And for things that were outside of my control, that had to come to an end. And at the time, I was also dealing a lot with my own super reactive, hypersensitive dog, Darwin. She's a miniature American Shepherd, and she was going through all sorts of behavioral issues and things that are super challenging. But I was doing that, my job in marketing was ending while I was really getting into training with her. So I thought, well, here's an opportunity. I have always loved dogs ever since I was a little kid. And now I'm getting really deep into this training with reactivity and this dog with huge feelings. So maybe there's something there. So I started to volunteer and spend some time with a local trainer here and do more work with her and really get into the behavioral side of dog training because so much of it was so deeply rooted in, emotional regulation and how my dog is feeling and why she's behaving this way. So I fell kind of in that rabbit hole. And then me and Laura met and we connected really fast. There was just so much in common between the things that we were interested in with dog behavior and dog training. So this past year, I started my own business in dog training. It's called Olive Bark, and I specialize and focus primarily on reactive dogs, dogs with big feelings as well, dogs who are nervous and anxious and fearful, because that is all stuff that is super familiar to me and dealing with Darwin and managing her reactivity. But I want to show people that there is a way through it and it doesn't have to be frustrating and it doesn't have to be stressful, because I also walked this path of just being constantly tired and stressed and not wanting to walk my dog and not wanting to go outside because there was just so much that we were dealing with. But I came out of the other end and I'm like totally fine. And there is a way to live a very happy and fulfilling lifestyle with a dog like this. And I just want people to know that if they're starting to recognize those behavioral patterns very early on. And that's just my whole goal, is for people to understand their dogs better and to be able to live a more harmonious life together, essentially. So that's me. That's what I do. That's what I'm excited about. But yeah.
I think like yeah, something I forgot to mention is that when me and Olivia met, I think it was like a bit of over a year. We met at a coffee shop, and I think it wasn't like 5 minutes since we started talking. And I was like, "Do you want to work with me?" And she was just like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! This is way too fast." But it's so funny how it was just like a few like conversations that we had, and because we already talked before, because we like met on Instagram, so like that's how I initially connected. I found a reel from her and I was like, that's so cool. And that's how like we ended up going for this coffee shop. And I think it's funny because it doesn't happen with anyone, that it's just like immediately it's like, I feel like we should do things. And then everything that we started doing together, it just kind of like flows very easily. And I feel like I wouldn't see myself doing a joint podcast with anyone else. It's just like, for some reason, this thing vibes. It's just like, I'm just like riding this wave.
I didn't know if I mentioned it, but I am working for Curious Snoots right now. And that's how like me and Laura started working together, as I started working for her and I still am. But yeah, it's kind of funny. It doesn't happen very often, I don't find, when you meet somebody that fast and you're like, oh, we click. Like there's something here that's clicking really well. And I think it's just this like commonality of same philosophy, just in life, not even about
Mhm.
dogs, but just like same philosophies in life and understanding about how we want to approach things. Like I think we have, our values are very similar in terms of how we approach our business or how we approach dog training or how we approach just problems in our general life.
Mhm,
And I think
mhm.
that has just merged really well in like starting a partnership like this, even like from a business sense. And I think we're both very clear about what we want in things and like how we want to see our businesses going forward, or just what we want to learn more of the world and of each other.
I know, and it's so funny because even when she started, like when you started working with me, and then you started your own business, there were like all these questions of people, and I think like till this day, like a lot of people is like, so what is it? Like, what is the relationship with Olivia and this? And she has her business, she's gonna leave you, and it's just like we are trying to make it work in like a very unique way. Of because like when I told her about working with me, like you told me right away that, I want to start my own business. Is that cool? Like, it's fine. So when everyone were like, oh, Olivia started her own business, like, I know, like I've been there and, like from the beginning, that was kind of like very transparent from you. So I think like we're just trying to like make it the best way we can. But I think both of us always put like the friendship before anything else, before like business or this or that. So I think like so far we've done a good job, and now I'm very excited of starting this new project that it's not your business or my business. It's like our little thing. So I feel like that's going to be very exciting.
I think that's such a good point. Just like coming back to like our similar philosophies too, and like how we see things is that people would be approaching you and be like, Olivia started her own business. Did you know that? And like for me, and I'm pretty sure for you too, like there's enough room at the table for everybody. And I have no issue. Like if one of my friends who lived like 2 blocks down was like, I'm going to start a dog training business. Is that okay? I'd be like, yeah, go for it. Like, we need more people here to help the dogs. Like, for me, and I think for you, it's like, it's not about competition. Like, you do you, I'll do me.
Uh-huh.
We can help each other in this and like help more dogs. It's not about like that competitive pitting each other against each other. We're not for that. That's not our main concern. We don't have time for that, you know?
Exactly.
Like, that's just like, and the other thing is that we're just like super transparent with each other when we want to do like a new project, or if we want to do an event, or if we want to, I don't know, we just want to make sure we're running it by each other because, like,
Uh-huh.
I would hate to overstep on something that you're really passionate about, or like come
Uh-huh.
into your area and do something that you're already doing because I have so much respect for you, and hopefully you
Hmm.
do for me too.
I do.
And we just want to be like honest and upfront about each other. But I think that's just how we approach life in general, which is why, again, this works so well.
Yay! Like that's what made us like bring this together. So we'll see now. Everyone's gonna be a witness of how these two minds come together into one thing. Because honestly, Olivia has a lot of things adding into Curious Nudes, and like your mere presence has made Curious Nudes
Oh,
1,000 times better. Like also like in my life. But I am very excited to see. And just like by when we started crafting this podcast, I think it was just flowing so easily, even like the name and the colors. And I think like I always tell another friend of mine that it's tricky when you start working in this type of like a different way, because you never know how the other person may take it, or maybe you have a vision that it's like on one side and I'm on the other. But I think naturally it's just like, I have this idea, and then you come up with another idea that complements that, or like makes it extra like cool. So I think that like our minds together can have some potential. So we'll see what this takes us.
we're killing it. Okay.
Do you see our headphones? They're so on brand.
Ricky, my husband, he's like, what are you guys doing today? And I'm like, oh, we're filming our first episode. And he's like, wow, you guys are filming your first episode already? He's like, it would have taken me months to get there.
No, we're doing fast, and our IT issues that we were having, because like we've been recording these pieces, and you'll like I'm guessing people who sees this will see our pre-recordings and hopefully see improvements from that, because we've been testing, because we really want to have like quality, and we're still testing, we're still improving. But I think like like every little step that we take, it just gets me more excited. So it's very exciting to now be filming the first one.
I know. This is like official.
Welcome, people. Well, I think this is a perfect segue of like our why and why we
Hmm.
started this podcast specifically. And, like what I feel like a lot of why we wanted to start this is because there are conversations that, at least in my head, when I started into dog training, it's a very confusing industry that, like you find a video that tells you should do this, and then you find another video where it's just like, that is horrible, never do that, do this thing, and then you find a third video saying like, those two are wrong, this is the right thing. So I think like it's so confusing when, and at least for me, I was always trying to find someone to tell me like, this is the right way, this is the path, and then you take it and everything's easier. I always compare that when I decided to be a trainer, I thought it was going to be like being a dentist, that it's just like you join the school, they tell you that, oh, this is it, and like,
Hmm.
these are the basic things you need to know, and then you go out there and like all the dentists know the same thing and everything is peaceful. But in here I think like there's so much of like approaches and philosophies, and you have like a lot of confusing information, that I really just wanted to talk about dogs, and I just wanted to have conversations because coming from Mexico, and I have an experience of what life with dogs is in there. And then coming to Canada was a whole different experience for me when I was working at this dog hotel. It's just like that simple fact, like you have a dog hotel that doesn't exist in Mexico. You have like a few places, which by the way, today I just saw in the news that this hotel lost a dog from like a very high profile, like soccer player. And it's just like, it's crazy, but that's the reality, like people don't have that much. I don't know. I feel like the industry, like the pet industry, is not as huge. And then you have like all the street dogs. So I came with that. And then I would be bombarded with these ideas of people who clearly didn't have that experience that I had. And then I felt ashamed of, like my culture, the way that I, treated my dogs before and in the past. So I think like for me, it's a lot of finding conversations where you just talk like the human that you are, because I feel we all have our own experience. And I think like I'm a huge fan of this phrase that is like, if you walk in someone else's shoes, then you would probably do the same thing. And I truly believe that, like once you know what the other human knows, everything they're doing in the present makes a lot more sense. And I really want to have those type of conversations where it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's like you are 100% right in your own experience, because you have a past, you have, like a lot of things that led you to think whatever you think right now. And if we can create this non-judgmental place when people can feel truly comfortable just telling their story, telling their journey, what they learned, what they've changed, and we can have an opportunity to learn from that. I feel it's like reading a book, but we're going to be reading a book every episode, because we're just going to learn about this other human that we're going to be interviewing. So like that is what really gets me excited into all of this. But what about you?
Yeah, I mean, we probably should mention that our plan is to bring people in every episode or every other episode at least, to be interviewing them and hearing their perspective and what their journey has been like with their dog or their experience with dogs. You summed up all of that perfectly, and I don't think I could have said it more eloquently than you just did, because I 100% agree, especially about the part about living in somebody else's shoes. And I think so, especially when I really got into dog training, I felt there was a lot of like this side, that side. Like you're either on this camp or you're in that camp. And like that's not what I want to talk about, Like that's not the stuff that interests me. I'm not here to pick fights or prove that I'm right or tell people that they're wrong. Like that is so far from what I'm interested in terms of dog training and learning more about dog behavior. But it just felt like there was so much of that, especially on social media, of these two camps just going at each other's throats all the time and telling people what they should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing. You just can't do that. You just can't do that
Doesn't
because
work.
no. And like, there's no way you're going to change somebody's mind by like telling them all the things that they're doing wrong. Like, that's not how you go about changing somebody's mind if that's your goal. Like, the whole thing is to have more empathy for people, to really see their perspective. And like what you said, if you were in that person's shoes and you had all their life experiences, you probably would have made the same decisions. And you can't say otherwise because you don't know. And I
Uh-huh.
think that's so important for people to remember, especially online when people are so quick to jump at each other's
Uh-huh.
throats and just tell them all the things that they're doing wrong. You just don't know what decisions you would make, especially with their biases and their upbringing, what culture they come from. how they were taught to train dogs or live with dogs. Like, there's just so many different facets of life that you just can't account for when you are judging somebody on their decisions. 100% what you said is just to broaden our perspective also and listen to more people who we might normally not have ever talked to,
Mhm.
and hearing what they have to say and how that can broaden our perspectives as well. Because I think we're always learning. You'll never stop learning. And this is kind of a cool way to also let people in on our conversations that we're always having. And so that they could also maybe learn some more, have more empathy for people, have more empathy for the dogs, and go about training and life with dogs in a way that really is fun and not, we're not like, I don't even know the word for it. Just,
Rigid.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, and I feel like just something that you mentioned, that's part of something that I've been trying to do on, especially on like my own social media and my own Instagram, is like I have certain rules of like, I never say things kind of like, this is it and this is my thing. It's always like, I do this and I do this because of this. And hey, if it works for you, it works for you. If not, that's okay. So I feel like I very quickly understood that all you can do, you cannot change people. All you can do is to model what you want to see outside. And I think for this one, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to keep mentioning this in every episode, but one of my biggest mentors in the world of dog training is Denise Fancy. And something that I've learned from her is that if you want to elevate conversations, you should start having those conversations and then create that as the model of how you're thinking. I'm always amazed on her Instagram of like how her followers are so understanding and so open-minded. And I think it's because she leads those conversations that way. So I think this is also our way of leading a conversation in the way that we would like it to go and
Hmm.
how we want to see more conversations happening out there. And that's not going to happen by telling people, hey, you should do this. It's more like I'm going to have the conversation the way I feel it should be going and the way that I want to make the other person feel. And if someone else says like, oh, you know what, that's pretty cool. I love how they analyze that situation. Then that's amazing. But we are not telling anyone you should do this or that because it's your life. You choose. And I feel like that's an easier way also for us to not. I feel like sometimes we feel the pressure of like, oh, I'm going to say this. At least for me, it has been a lot of fear coming into this of what is someone going to judge me or are they going to over like you think something that it's not it. But it's like when you just have that like more relaxed approach of like, I'm not telling anyone, so no one should feel
Hmm.
offended by this. And I found that even on like, my videos and things like that, most of the feedback that I get is very positive, and I feel it comes from a place that it's just me showing what I do. And a lot of people are more receptive because when you start like just pointing the finger, it's just natural, like your defenses go on and then you're like, oh, why are you judging me? So I think like that's where our love for human behavior also comes into place because it's like, well, it's not all about how we're going to change the dog. At the end of the day, when we are trainers, our biggest task is to help the human. And I think it's hard to help someone when they're feeling judged by us. So I feel like that's something we both, I think we really embrace in our businesses and how we deal with our clients. So I hope that transfers into this.
I really hope so, because man, there's enough of that other stuff happening in the world, and this is not the place for it. We are a judgment-free zone, and we welcome fun, good conversations that really progress dog behavior and dog training and not set us back.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just build bridges, people.
Yeah. Okay, now I want to get into something
Yay.
a little bit more fun and like just to hear a little bit about our past and everything. But I want to hear like when was the first time you became really obsessed with dogs? Like what is your earliest memory? Take me back to baby Laura and tell me, what do you remember or what moment really sticks in your mind of being like, I love this thing?
It's so funny that you mentioned because I thought of that maybe like a year ago because I remember I did a reel when I was kind of like looking for pictures of me with dogs and everything I could find. It was kind of like from high school onwards, like from when I got my dog. And then this year my mom came to visit and like if you want baby Laura, like I got to have like this. I mean, I don't know if you'll see, but that's me with
So
doggies. So
cute.
there's like I didn't realize that I had this passion like so early. Like this one just cracked me up because like that's me learning about dogs. And it's like, okay, so I guess that this was and like this one is also like baby Laura
Oh
feeding a
my
little
god.
doggy.
I didn't know we were bringing pictures. I would have came more prepared.
I had it right here. I'm always ready because I keep this close to my heart to remind me why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yeah,
my
like
god,
that was
we have to say to our listeners because we forget that sometimes this is only on audio. Can you describe the picture?
oh. Okay, yeah, thank you for remembering that. Like you're on
Yeah.
fire. But yeah, like I'm just showing a ton of pictures of me being, I want to say like 2 years old or yeah, I want to say 2 years old. And then just me with dogs. I had like my family had this dog and I'm just playing with them. Like my family had different dogs along my youth and I'm here, I'm playing with all of them. And I wanted to show you this picture because this one is from, I'm a bit older here. I want to say like 8 years old. But I'm walking my dogs with my cousin. And like in
Oh.
Mexico, like the choke chain is the go to. The leash is so tiny, like it drives me crazy. And then we have a stick because if another dog would approach us, because there's a lot of street dogs, that's the stick that my cousin would use to scare dogs. So this is why when I started my school of training, that it was very North American approach. I like they were shaming on all of these tools and all of these things that like for me they were like the norm. Like I grew up with Cesar Millan. So like that's kind of like you would just see like and until this day I see a lot of my friends who are just like still watching his episodes. And I feel like all of a sudden everyone was hating on him and I wasn't sure why. Now I can understand why. It's just like, okay, everything makes sense. But when you're just coming in with your like wide eyes and it's just like, hi, I'm here. It's like, okay, I don't understand what is this, but this is what I grew up with. And I don't feel like I should be ashamed of that. I just want to learn to do better. But yeah, so like turns out I had like a lot of closeness with dogs when I was a very, very early baby. So I think like that's why I don't remember any of those. I barely remember that dog's name was Rusty. Was Rusty, but in Spanish it's Rusty. So that was his name. And apparently I was pretty obsessed because I have a ton of pictures of us playing and I'm feeding him. And I remember I would sit my dogs in a little chair and I would like feed them because I'm an only child and I come from a family that like like the youngest cousin after me, she was like 15 years older than me. So I was like the only baby in a family of adults. So like the dogs were like the ones I could play with, I could do silly things with. They, like they would hang out with me because my family was busy fighting. So I think that's really how everything started. Like they became my first friends, I want to say, just because that was the nature of my family. And now I'm like, I'm happy because now that's what I do for a living. I'm like best friends with all of these dogs. So it's so funny how things go around. And one time my mom-in-law told me that we always go back to what made us happy when we were like kids. And with these pictures, it's like, I clearly did. I did that 360 turn and then I just came back to where I started. So that
Hmm.
was my story.
That is so cute. I wish I brought picture.
Next time you have to bring pictures. When we talk about olive bark, bring the picture.
You know what? I'm gonna go find them and maybe our thumbnail for this like podcast can be us holding our baby pictures with dogs.
And honestly, if you have them, we can always add them when we edit. So like you can talk about the doggies and then we can just put them in there.
She's thinking, she's thinking. I'm sure I have a couple somewhere. I don't have like a lot of like childhood pictures myself, but I might have a couple. But that is super cute, and that makes a lot of sense considering you're an only child and like you just gravitated towards all those dogs as like your best friends and like companions to play with and everything. But that is super adorable.
I was a little lonely baby with animals.
Mine, my earliest memory of like being really obsessed with dogs probably happened around the same age. I want to say like 6 or 7. But I just remember around 6 years old, I I went up to my mom and I was like, "Can we get a dog? Please. Like, I need a dog. I promise I will do anything. I will take care of it. I will bathe it. I will pick up its poop. Just
Which
like,
is the biggest
please."
lie ever.
And I remember her like being kind of like, "I don't know, we'll think about it." And then I have another memory of us going to some woman's house and looking at puppies, and they were like toy poodle puppies, and I was just so excited, and we happened to take one home. I didn't know what the logistics were at the time. I was 6.
I barely remember that.
I barely remember anything, but I was like, "Oh my God, I have a dog. This is the best thing ever. It's my little baby. I'm going to take care of it." And I think for a 6-year-old, I really tried my best taking care of that dog. Like, I was bathing it. I did pick up the poop. I did learn to brush her. Her name was Ginger. She was a toy
Oh.
poodle. I named her after the Spice Girl Ginger Spice because she was my favorite. Um, but that's like my earliest memory of like being really obsessed with dogs. I think looking back now, it stemmed from my love of like Disney. Like I still till this day, I still love Disney. And I think just all like the animals in Disney movies, like I was obsessed with The Lion King. I know this is not Disney, but The Swan Princess I also really loved. Like, just talking animals made me think, like, I want one of those, even though I know pets don't talk. But to have a companion like that would be super cool, so I think that's where it started. But that was kind of where my love of, like, animals began. And then I also remember I remember a little bit about this, but my mom told me that when I was about 7 years old, at the time she owned a fish and chip shop, and she said I was playing outside, and I had come back in with a really big dog that was, like, about my height, and I had come into the shop, and she was like, "Whose dog is that, and where did you find it?" And I told her something like, "I just found it, it's lost, we need to find its mom or dad or something." So, there must have been something within me at a very young age where I was like, "We have to help the animals."
Look at them. And it's so funny now that you mention of like the talking animals and that back then you were like, well, they don't talk. And it's how funny now circling back of your business of how you are teaching other humans how their animals do talk and how they can start talking to them in their language. So look at that. You did also the full
I know.
circle.
Wow, full circle. That is so true. And I'm like, yeah, your dogs do talk to you. They just talk in a different way through
Not
their
like in the Disney
body, through their
movies.
motion. No, not like that. That's a little bit more magical.
Like Dr.
um,
Doolittle kind of thing.
exactly. I liked hearing your story because it kind of gave me some like insight into like how you got to where you were. And I didn't know that like you had all these so many different dogs in your childhood, think too, because for me I had like my toy poodle and then she had a puppy and we kept that one. And then later on I had like a Rottweiler for my parents wanted a guard dog. Not a guard dog at all. But those were like my 3 experiences with dogs in my childhood, and I didn't have one until Darwin, so like until my adult life. But
So you did
that's
have like a little gap between those doggies and then your
yeah,
adulthood
from about
doggy.
like when I was 16, maybe 16, 17, up until like, yeah, until I got Darwin, and I was like 27 when I got her. I don't even know how old it.
Okay.
28? Yeah.
So kind of like 10
So it
years.
was a good 10 years, yeah.
And it's funny because, yeah, like in my house, and it's funny because now that you mentioned that, I also had to resort to emotional manipulation to get all of my doggies because they had Roosty when I was born. And then he was, yeah, like he was run over by a car. So then we ended up with no dog. And then this other street dog came into our home and wanted to stay there. And then we decided to like lose her, went to a different neighborhood, and she followed us everywhere. We crossed a bridge and then we went to a different church because back then, like my family was very Catholic. So then we went to mass and then we were like, okay, perfect. She's in a different neighborhood. We go outside a different door and then she won't find us. And for some reason, the dog, a week later, she was back in our place. It was just like, okay, I guess this dog needs to stay. And that's actually this doggy here. That's Peggy.
Oh.
But then when we moved to Leon, because I was born in Mexico City, a huge city, and then we moved to this smaller city. And then one time my mom got me this doggy that it was a Samoyed, which was the one in this picture. And then she got Parvo. She
Oh.
survived. And then she got like I always forget the name of where they like the skin condition when they like lose the,
Um, Starts with an
yeah.
N.
Like in Spanish is sarna, but I don't know in English, is it the
Mange.
man? Yeah, yeah,
Mange.
mange. So she got that. So we went to visit my family in Mexico City, and they knew a vet. So that vet treat her, and they were like, "Well, she has to stay here because like she has to go through her treatment." And then they stole my doggy, and then when I was like, yeah, they just kept it forever. So then I was again with no dog. And then when I was maybe like 8 years old, my friend, she came to school, and turns out her dog escaped and came back pregnant. And then she had these, it was supposed to be schnauzers, but then it was just like, when the vet saw it, it was just like, it has some schnauzer in her. And then we went to Mexico City. We visited our family where Peggy and Bonnie, the Samoyed, was. And for some reason, she ended up staying as well. So I just came back home with no doggy again. And I was just like, they take them all. I think my mom had anything to do with that, of like, well, guess what? She's staying. And then they had 3 dogs. I had no dog. So then that's where I resorted on like emotional manipulation with my mom. And when I was 13, she finally got me Wamba, which was a Cocker Spaniel. And she surprised me with that. I was doing like a little school dance, and then she came in and she had like holding my doggy,
Oh,
and I was like, oh my God, it was the best day ever. And that's how I finally got my dog at 13. But they were just taking it away from me. I don't know why.
that's so traumatic.
It was so
Especially when
sad.
you're a kid. You have like no idea, and the dogs are just leaving you, and you've like, what's happening?
We go to Mexico City and I come back with no dog. Like, what's the deal? So yeah, that was my sad
Aw.
story with dogs.
Poor baby Laura. I feel so bad.
I know. But now I have all the doggies, so no one can take them away unless my clients move away. Don't do
It's
that,
true. It's
guys.
true. Yeah. I would love for our listeners to tell us, like, what is your first memory of being like obsessed with dogs, and where do you think they should tell us? Instagram? YouTube?
Oh. Well, I guess you can always comment if you're watching this on YouTube. You can always just comment. I have never said this, but put it on the comments below. I feel so proud now. But I feel like if you are listening on Spotify, you can always find us at Roughly Speaking Podcast on Instagram, and you can just comment on I'm sure we have like any recent post, and you can just say that you listened to our first episode and you're telling us our earliest memory. Because I mean, I'm assuming that maybe some of the people who listen this episode are going to be our friends who are just kind of like supportive and want to know what's up. But our true listeners, I guess, that if you're here is because you also love talking about dogs and hearing about dogs and learning about dogs. So I would love to know your own journey of how you got into the dog obsession, and yeah, like your earliest memory, just like ours, hopefully not as traumatic. But I'm sure we all have stories.
Yeah, just give us an interesting story. We would love to hear it. I think everybody always has like a very unique story, even though they might not think about it that way. But it's always nice to hear how, like, what is your earliest memory about being obsessed with dogs, or why are you obsessed with dogs? So please let us know in our comments on our Instagram page. That's Roughly Speaking Podcast.
Well, if you're listening on like podcasts, you can also go to our YouTube and see our version with video, and then you can actually meet our faces in case you
Yeah.
don't know us. And then yeah, just comment in there, tell us your story, and yeah, we're excited to start, like just sharing this journey with you. I'm sure we're all gonna learn. I'm also excited to learn more of Olivia's stories, because I think like this is just gonna bring a lot of things we haven't talked about yet. So this is very exciting.
That's so true. Like, we've been friends for probably just over a year now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but I think there's still some, like, gaps in our past that we haven't really fully explored yet, so it'll be really interesting
Uh-huh.
to learn more about each other and then about our guests as we bring them on. So that's going to be super interesting. And our next two episodes that are coming up, just to give you guys a little bit of a teaser, we're going to be focusing on both mine and Laura's stories so that you can kind of have a better understanding of where we're coming from and our history and leading up to today and how we want to take this podcast forward as we bring in a wide variety of other guests and people to join us along the way. So it'll be really fun, I think.
I'm very excited to hear that, like, full Olivia story because, I mean, I think, like, on our day-to-day, we're always talking either about the things that we are working on or, like, this or that, but we haven't had a chance of just, like, going for a coffee and it's just like, "Tell me about your past." So I think, like, this is gonna be the perfect opportunity. I'm gonna bring my bubble tea and just listen to your story. I'm very excited.
Okay, well, if you're getting bubble tea, then I'm getting bubble tea.
I think like when we talk about like we have to like and people like if you go and listen like you're waiting for our second episode, go get bubble tea and then we can just make it a bubble tea party of learning about our stories all together.
And if you haven't tried bubble tea yet, you need to go and try bubble tea.
It's good.
But I think that's a good place to close it out here, unless you have anything else you wanted to add, Laura.
No, I think just that. I mean, we already mentioned our Instagram, so you can go and follow us there. And yeah, like we're still kind of like putting everything together and understanding how this podcast life is all about. But I am, yeah, you'll see hopefully the evolution and yeah, no, just tune in for our next episode and yeah, follow us.
Sounds good. Okay, so we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.